Okay, I think we're good. Let me know if everybody can hear me clearly. We'll get started in just a second. I see ya, but can you hear me? Nice, nice, nice. Okay, well, it is good to be back on the live streams. I'm glad we got these rolling. So the season 4 live streams will be kind of different from the past. It'll be a combination of everything people loved about the live streams and a combination of everything I loved about the live streams, which is the question and answer. My audience typically liked the demonstration piece. So we'll do a live stream hybrid demonstration and question and answer. And I think I really like what I'm going to demonstrate today. I did mention in the description it was either going to be a working on EMKC community projects, or I was going to do a recent client project in Python, a small web scraping thing. So that's actually what we're going to do in this video today. And I think you'll find that pretty interesting. So if you want to ask any questions, I'm going to be taking questions directly from the chat. Our question system's not working right now. So you could still use the Q colon, question colon, and I'll just look for those in the chat and I will answer those as I go. And then in the meantime, I'll do the project in Python and I think it'll be fun. So you can ask your questions now. I'm going to do a couple announcements. Of course, we haven't streamed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, roughly. So I got a couple things I want to say, but we won't spend too much time on that. And then we'll get right back into the content. So certainly the first announcement, or I guess the first question is, where have I been? And the simple answer is, I've just been really busy. That's all. I haven't been able to do tons of streams, and I've done a little bit less content, but I am still here. I am still doing content, and that's not going to change for the foreseeable future. So no worries there. I do know that lately I've been really, okay, good. Yeah, I've been really obsessed with producing really good content. I've been trying to say that, okay, well, I'm not putting out another video unless it's going to be very either informative, entertaining, or something else. But I'm trying not to put out anything that's just half content. I really want to put out the best stuff I can, so I've been kind of choosy in the topics, and so that's kind of resulting in some delays as well. But everything's perfectly fine. I'm happy. Everything's good, happy and healthy, and I'll be making content for the foreseeable future. And I know the latest stuff I've been doing seems to be better received than the previous. It's been a lot more popular. People seem to like it. So I'm going to keep doing that. Yes. Fidget with the 20. Thank you so much for that. Felix Food. I've been watching you for almost 2 years now. Yeah, it's really been that long, actually. I know I could think back about 2 years. About 2 years, 9 months, I think, is when I put out that Craigslist video. And that was what kind of propelled this channel into what it is. When I put that video out, I had only 8,000 subscribers. That was it. I put that video out, and within about 3 months, I had like 80,000. So that kind of propelled it. But yeah, that's where a lot of people came from. That's potentially where you came from. And it's been an interesting trip from there. So yeah, we'll keep making content as we go. I have put out a new segment, as you've probably saw. It's called EM Talks, and this was something I had talked about doing for some time. And the basically the EM Talks was intended to be these kind of brief and short, videos on maybe relevant and current content. Perhaps like things in the news that's relative to technology, or just something I want to comment on, or something that comes out of my... I get a lot of these questions, in Discord. We're asked kind of the same stuff all the time. So it usually makes sense to just answer that in a public forum, like a live stream or like a video, something like that. So that's what the EM Talks were intended to be. People seem to like them. What I've noticed is people either really like them or they really don't. And I think it's all based on how closely do my opinions and thoughts match those of the viewer. And I think if it's controversial or I found out the other day that React Native is kind of controversial because there's a lot of people that like Flutter, and there were no shortage of those people to remind me of that in the comments. So I guess that's just one of those things where, not everybody's going to be happy on what I make, but I'm just trying to give my thoughts on things, and that's kind of that. I try to at least back up the things I say with some facts about that product. I try to be objectively truthful, as much as I can. So that's really the best I can do. I'm not trying to like upset anybody or anything. So as far as, yeah, I'm going to keep making those. I like them. I think they're good. They're good content when it doesn't warrant a typical video demonstration or a live stream demonstration. So I think that kind of content makes sense. In terms of future live streams, I don't know the exact schedule. I'd like to go back to once a month, so I think we're going to aim for that. I can't guarantee that for sure, but that's going to be our goal. So we'll try to do that. And I'm going to try to come up with about 10 minutes ago, I came up with this thing called a theme of the stream. So I think going forward, we'll have the theme of the stream, and then I will do some demonstration piece that is kind of related to that stream. And then I'll take a bunch of questions in the chat that are also related to that theme. And that's how we'll go forward with live streams for season 4, which will run until the end of the year. And then next year we'll start on something new. And then the final piece of announcement type stuff is we've been doing Engineer Man Knowledge Center coding contests for about since August maybe. So about 7 months, perhaps even 8. And those have been going very well. People seem to really enjoy those. And that's something that everybody here can get involved in if you would like. The Engineer Man contest, they're completely free to join. And basically what you do is you can pick from one of 40 different languages, and you can accomplish a weekly contest that goes up once every, actually it goes out every Sunday. So on Sunday, you can check out the contest, you can submit your solution, and basically you get EMKC points and little awards that go on your profile for the shortest solution, both overall and per language. There's lots of languages that you can use, so I definitely recommend that if you enjoy that sort of thing, definitely check it out. And even if you feel like you can't compete against some of the better programmers on there, remember, you can always compete within each language, and then you can also do them just for the knowledge. You get participation points anyways, so everybody walks away a winner. So those have been wildly successful, and we've been working on the tooling around those to make them easy to create and easy to deliver. So if you have not checked out those yet, you should definitely have a look. I think you'll really like what we've done. Okay, that's it for announcements. Let's get into the content. Look at some questions first. Will you do programming questions? I will do programming questions if I can answer them in like a discussion type format. I'm not going to answer like really isolated specific questions, things that you could find like an answer on Stack Overflow. But if you want my thoughts or discussions on a particular thing, I'm always happy to give those. TypeScript or Dart? I'm going to go with neither. I think JavaScript is better than TypeScript. I think Dart's too new and specific to Flutter, so probably neither. I'd probably go with JavaScript. Arch or Gentoo. If I had to pick between Arch or Gentoo, see, I'm more of a like just make it work. I want it to just work kind of guy. So, and both of those are very much not just work kind of distros. However, Arch is the least, or is the more, the closer to the just work philosophy that I have. So I would choose Arch in that case. Okay, let's open this up here. Whoops, not that one. There we are. So basically the project I'm going to be doing today, it was something that, oh, I'm too big here. I need to get smaller. Shrink myself to small EM mode. Okay, good. So the project I'm going to be doing, and it was sort of this interesting thing. I got a message from a guy who needed a small piece of software, and that small piece of software was a web scraper for garage sales. And I thought, okay, well, the thing about web scraping, for those who don't know who that is or what that is, web scraping is when you go to some website online, some page, and then you pull all of the content out of that page and get it structured in a format that makes sense. So in the context of something like a garage sale, we would go to a garage sale site and then pull the content off of that site into like a CSV file, something like, the address of the garage sale, the GPS coordinates, what's going to be there, the times it's active, and other content. And this is a project that I thought was going to take a few hours, but it ended up taking me about 20 minutes. So he had originally asked for 2 sites. One I think was Garage Sale Finder, something like that. And then the other site was the one we're going to do today. And it should be similar. I'm going to build it from scratch, but it shouldn't be too hard to do. So I think it's a smaller project where I can take it from nothing and finish it in one stream, so you can kind of see how I approach these kind of problems. Oh, people are putting questions in here now. Okay, looks like my team is copying questions into Discord, so I can answer some of these here. What would you choose between Express.js, Flask, Python? Well, so I'm a JavaScript guy, so automatically that removes Spring and Flask, so I would definitely go with Express in that case. Andrew, do you regret anything you said in your React Native video? No, never. I never regret any content I put out because I always think before I put content out. I don't just say things off the cuff. I don't just make content to make content. So when I'm making that kind of stuff, I've already researched it. I've already done it. Like when I did my React Native project, which is still ongoing, by the way, I waited until I used it for like 40 or 50 hours before I made kind of judgment on it. So do I regret anything in it? No. I wish people had saw that video for what it was, and that video was intended to be just my experience with React Native. That's it. Like I didn't badmouth Flutter. I've never even used it, so I don't know if it's good. So it wasn't intended to say like this tool's the best. It's just to say that I used it because it made sense for my use case, and I'm having a wonderful experience with it. That's really all the video is intended to do. We think about Vim versus Atom versus Nano. So this is one of those like editor wars thing. I prefer editors like Atom, but hey, what I tell people in Discord, because people argue about editors all the time in my Discord, I always tell people that the best editor available is the one that you personally can be very productive with. So if you can be very productive with Atom, then that's great. If you can be very productive with Emacs or Vim, that's great. If you can be productive with Nano, that's also great. So you pick whatever. Yeah, see the Liam said, why not VS Code? I don't bother answering those questions. Why not Atom? I could just ask the same question back. They're essentially the same tool. They're all basically the same stuff. In the end, an editor is just a place for you to type text. So, whatever lets you type the text the quickest and the most productive is the one I think you ought to do. Calix with the $2, thank you for that. Chase Food, keep up the good streams. I will, thank you. Calix is a long-term team member, one of the first, actually. I think the 3rd person in my Discord when I created it. So I don't think there's anybody that's been there longer than him. So thanks for that. Yeah, brackets. That's good stuff. So I don't know. That's the deal with editors. It's just choose the one you like. Whether that's JetBrains or whether that's Vim. It just honestly it doesn't matter. Just pick the one you like. I've kind of gotten beyond telling people that they're wrong for the editor they use. So I don't do that anymore. I think whatever people are using is the best. Will you put out React Native videos to show the same process can be done to Android videos? I suppose I could. Yeah, I can already see that the amount of kind of, and I promise I will write some code. We're not just going to do questions. Don't worry. I can already tell that the amount of interest in these mobile platforms that build from one code base to various platforms, I can already tell that there's tons of interest in that just by the response I got from my React Native video. And I could totally see myself doing React Native videos because I'm still working on that project. And I still probably have another 100 hours, if not 150 hours on that project to work on. So by the time I finish it, I'm going to be pretty good with React Native. And I'm really liking it so far. So it's, and for those people who do like Flutter, I promise you I'll check out Flutter. I will give it a fair shot. I will download it. I'll do a small project. Chase, stop. I'll do a small project on it. Come here. You want to go on stream? You want to come see your friends on stream? Huh? Can't get in the video. So I promise you I'll check out Flutter. I will. I perhaps even do a video on that. You know, just so it's fair. Just kind of bouncing around code here. Who's the best VPS provider in your opinion? Well, my sponsor would kill me if I say anything else, so I'm gonna say Linode. But really, you know, they're all kind of the same. You know, there's sort of two classes of VPSs. You know, there's the like DigitalOcean, Linode kind of class, but then there's like the super enterprise class like AWS, Google, and so on. So it's kind of what your budget is and how much you're willing to pay. For the most part, Linode, DigitalOcean type options have you know a really good feature set. Like it's not for me. I don't host on Google or AWS, so it's not for me. But if you need like you know the full batteries included, you know, cloud experience, then it's gonna be an AWS or Google that you're gonna want to do. It's probably not gonna be enough to have the other ones because they're just missing some stuff. But that's what it is. Okay, I promise I'm going to answer some more questions. I want to get rolling on some of this code though. So our goal today is to take this site called Yard Sales Search and see if we can generate a CSV file of the, let me actually put this in. Okay, that's fine. So yard sales search, you know, find yard sales, you know, we'll do like 90210. And the whole point of this site is just, it gives you a map, it gives you all the yard sales that are going on or whatever. You know, you got your featured sales or whatever. So what I want to do is I want to build a Python script that can take all of this data and write it out, you know, to a CSV or JSON or whatever. One second, I'm gonna get my terminal up. What is this, stream 42? Great. Bring that down here. Don't lose my site. So when I take on scraping projects, typically what I look at is, you know, where's the boundary of the information that I'm even interested in here. So I can see that it's the top left corner of this blue box, you know, all the way down to the bottom border of the white box. I look at that and I say, all right, well, that's, you know, that's the boundary of what I want. So I open up my inspect element. Of course, this is really tiny. Try to make this bigger for you. Great. You know, and I look inside here and I try to find, like, you know, where's this content? Okay, so obviously it's somewhere. Okay, that's the full box. So it's these rows right here. So you can see as I scroll my mouse over, you can see it's highlighting the box that I need. So all I'm really looking here is, all right, well, this is like my item, event row featured. Great. So that's what I want. No problem. I'm just going to copy this element. Copy element. Move this to the side for now. So what I'm looking here is I'm just dumping this junk HTML in here, and hopefully with Atom I can beautify it. Not great, but it'll work. So this is sort of the first step, is I extract the first piece of information out into an HTML file, and then I'm kind of looking at this. I'm looking at this file and I'm saying, well, what data do I want out of this? And then from there, I should be able to just scrape it out. And I'll show you the process on how it's coded in a second. So in terms of what this guy wanted is he wanted the address, which I can clearly see here. He wanted the latitude and longitude, which I can see here. He wanted the description, which I think is, yeah, description. March 20, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., corner of Richmond, whatever. And then I think that's about all he wanted. So yeah, I wrote a thing that would pull that. So let's actually write that code and make that work. So in terms of what we need, we need some HTTP library. We'll need JSON, and then we're going to use a tool called Beautiful Soup 4, which I think is from BS4 import beautiful soup. Great. So our first step is kind of just to make the call to this website to get the data out of it. And fortunately, it's pretty easy because all we're really doing is just taking this URL here and kind of putting it into requests. So I'll do a new variable called HTML, which is request.get, and then this URL. So yardsalessearch.com, garagesales.html, zip equals 90210. And so you can kind of see what we'd be able to do in the future. If we wanted to make this scraper do multiple zip codes, which was the case in the project that I delivered to this client, I can just swap out 90210 with whatever zip code I want, and it'll get me the garage sales for that. Gianluca, I think that's BrainPlot. Thank you for creating a community of like-minded people I can confront with every day. I've learned a ton of stuff in your server, met interesting people. Yeah, BrainPlot. Thank you very much for the 10 euros. I appreciate that. Yep. BrainPlot's a very active and active team member who's been around the server for quite some time now and recently returned, and we're happy to have him back, so that's good. Okay, nice. Thank you so much for that. So we have our requests here. We'll just throw that text on the end there. So we can test this. Print HTML. So let's just run this real quick. Make sure we get something out of it. So yeah, this is kind of nasty, but it is indeed the site. I'm sure if I were to take this HTML fragment, called let's see, Fullerton. I'm sure if I were to grab Fullerton, of course it's so it's there. It's the right content. This is definitely the HTML that we're looking at. All we got to do now is just actually, use Beautiful Soup to parse all this out and get the data out of it, which we can do it. So next step is create a soup variable equals Beautiful Soup HTML, and we're going to use the HTML dot parser for that. And this is kind of going to take all the HTML and write it into a series of, I'm guessing, Python objects that we can then kind of iterate between. So soup will be a representation of all that. So in terms of our first, in terms of our first thing we're looking at, we want to get this event row featured. And the event row featured, remember, that's that block. That's that block that we're trying to extract information out of. So we kind of want to limit it to that. So to do that, we want to loop over every element that is of that type. So we'll do something like for element in soup.findAll. We're looking for divs. And we're looking for divs that have a class, excuse me, of event row featured. And what this should do is this should give us just those elements. And we can kind of test that just by printing the element. We don't need to print HTML anymore. That's probably a little too much. Get rid of our grep. Okay, nothing happened. So now what? Let's see, HTML. Oh, I think because I had a space there, maybe. Oh, that was why. Jeez, it's just that space messed it up. Look at that. See, that's programming. You add one additional character, it just blows up the entire thing. So we're good now. This is printing every element, and here again, this is still not super useful because it's just a giant blob of text. But this blob of text is limited, hopefully, just to that, you know, box of things. So I think what we want to do now is we want to actually extract one of these pieces of data just to kind of see that everything's working. I think that piece of data that we want to extract is probably going to be this street address. So they kind of made this really easy for us because it's just a span tag with item prop equals street address, and then we can extract the text out of that. So that makes it quite easy. So copy street address, and this is just to make sure everything's working. So our first element is going to be, you know, address 1, which we can do element.find. We can look for a span tag with an item prop of street address. And get the, I think it's text. I think text is what we need. So rather than printing address 1, or printing element, we'll print address 1. Let's run it again. See, looks good. Nice. So we got our addresses. So this tells us that it is indeed the right stuff. Whoops, oh, my microphone. And we can actually compare it just to make sure that everything's working. So we got Commonwealth Ave, we got Guardia Ave, got Selby Ave. So this all seems to look right. Now I don't think it's, yeah, the last one's Hamilton. See, the last one's Hamilton. So this is just the featured. You know, there's also the basic sales. Obviously, those are just as easy to scrape, probably. We'll just ignore those for now, and probably for this example. But we have everything that's right there is also right here. We don't even really need this browser anymore. So we're just going to put this over here. That's kind of not a page we need anymore because we got the data down here. So great, we have our addresses. So I'm gonna stop real quick and look at some questions here. Okay, let's see. Trying to sort through all the chatter. Oh, Bo asked, you've helped me a lot with homework. Would you recommend Google IT Professional Certificate for a starter in the IT industry? So I'm going to be honest, I've actually never heard of the Google IT Professional Certificate, so I can't speak to the merits of that. I do know that if you're early on in your programming career, like, certificates are a really good, quick way to say, like, you know, I am very skilled in this particular thing. That's really what certificates say. You know, they don't say, certificates don't often say I have a broad knowledge in a number of topics, or, you know, I can do everything, but it does say that this one thing, you know, like say Java or Cisco equipment or Microsoft tools, you know, I can do this thing very well, and I am certified as such according to the certification requirements of the vendor that provides the certificate, which is often the provider of the technology itself, which is to say that Google technology certificates are often given by Google. Microsoft technology certificates are often given by Microsoft. So with that, you know, those are very helpful. So anybody thinking about getting certificates, they're often pretty cheap too. So it's a decent thing to have. I have a bunch of them. They're all mostly expired now because I haven't gotten any in quite some time, but there was a time where that's sort of stuff I did as well. Am I going to do any more game automation? Yes, probably, but I can't say when. The Android game automation stuff was something that I extraordinarily enjoyed. And I know that people enjoyed it as well. I got a lot of good reviews on those videos. People had a lot of fun. And the Stick Hero video, I think, is a few 100,000 views at least now. So, and WSL or pure Linux, that's an easy one. It's pure Linux all the way. You know, there's no point in having the fake when you can have the real. So I would say, but here again, you know, I'm a Linux evangelist. You know, I think everybody should use Linux. So, I mean, I am going to be kind of biased there. I'm not gonna say nice things about Windows or anything like that. You know, I think WSL is just fake Linux. So you should just get the real Linux. Now keep in mind, you can always have a Windows machine. I know a lot of people here probably play video games. I also do. And so right over there, I have a machine that has Windows on it that I use for video games. So not like, you don't have to swear it off forever. You just, you know, I believe in using the right tool for the job. And the right tool for the job of playing video games is Windows. The right tool for everything else is Linux. So that's why I use it. There's another, I know I'm kind of bouncing around here, but there's another part of this stream that I kind of missed, you know, and the theme of the stream was indeed making progress on your projects. I forgot to mention that earlier. You know, that's why I'm doing this, you know, scraping project to begin with. But one of the things I'm asked a lot about in Discord is, you know, how do I get started with projects? You know, how can I stay motivated? How can I make things work? Things like that. You know, and the answer is always just take it in small steps. You know, if you bite off more than you can chew, if you take on this huge project, especially as a newer programmer, then it becomes very hard to finish it entirely, and you ultimately never have the satisfaction of finishing anything. And that's very demoralizing. That makes people not want to do programming. So most important thing is try to take some quick wins. Very important. I ignored PHP for long, but this Laravel thing is super cool. So I haven't used PHP in probably, I ditched PHP for Node.js probably 7 years ago, I would say, 6 or 7 years ago. Prior to that, I was primarily a PHP developer. So my understanding is Laravel is the big cool thing. That's the biggest framework I think that's out there. But yeah, I think it's a good one. What's your favorite video games? So I play a lot of stuff, probably too much. I play Rocket League primarily, but also I play some Rust. I also play some Satisfactory, play some Factorio. I don't really play that many shooters though, other than Rust, and I'm really bad at it. Rust is just appealing because of the building piece. I think if it didn't have building, then it wouldn't be of interest to me. Let's see. This is asked by Radamas CZ. What is the biggest project you've worked on? That's probably be my work in high volume background checks. And although, well, I guess big in what metric? You know, there's big as in the highest traffic. There's also big as in the most code. So I think in terms of the highest traffic, this application wasn't like super large. Certainly not my largest, but it did have the most amount of traffic, and thus it had the most amount of challenges to the project. Things change. Things change when you're working on things at scale, and you know, because one server isn't always going to work. So as soon as you add a second server to the mix, you automatically have a host of new challenges. So I will say that, you know, this project presented a lot of infrastructure and software challenges, so it was very fun to do. I very much enjoyed that project, and I learned a ton from it. So 10 out of 10 would do that project again. Yeah, it's a common thing. So, hey, I'm a junior developer. Whenever I write code, it works, but I don't feel validated with my code. I don't know if it's the right way to do it or not. How do I know I've written the code the right way? So it's, you know, this is all part of the learning process. If you're brand new in programming and you're starting to write code, especially code of increasing complexity and code that perhaps you see as maybe beyond what you're able to do, then it's not uncommon to do it the wrong way or a suboptimal way or a way that's just flat out broken. So I would say How do you know it's written the right way? The easiest way would be to just ask somebody. Ask somebody with more knowledge than you. Just say, hey, have I done this correctly? Can you point out anything that maybe I could have improved here? And it's not hard to find those people, especially, I don't know if you mean junior developer as in like, you yourself feel like a developer who's of a junior level, or if you mean like you're literally a junior developer at a company, but you should be able to find somebody to have a look at your code and just say if there's anything wrong. And if you don't, there's always the engineer man server to put your code on there. So you can certainly do that. But yeah, it all comes with time. And believe it or not, I've been programming now for let's see, 20, let's call it 25 years. I've been programming now 25 years, roughly. And I still do things suboptimally. So this isn't something that I'll probably be like 60 years old writing code and I'll still be doing things suboptimally. But I will say that I'm doing things a lot better today than I was 20 years ago. So the important thing here is not that you eventually write perfect everything. The point here is that you progress in your trade of software stuff. So it's only really important that you're making progress. So just keep at it. You'll be fine. I want to learn 4chan. Is it not 4chan? 4tran. I want to learn 4tran. Is it fine? It's not really used anywhere. There's very limited opportunities for 4tran, so I don't know. I don't know if that's a good choice. Yeah, John B. It's important to take breaks so you don't get burned out. That's absolutely correct. It's you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what a short break or a short shower will do for your thinking process. So yeah, take breaks. If you're feeling like you've just been at this problem forever, go take a walk. Go outside, go take a walk, come back, sit down, clear your mind, and you sort it out. You find that missing semicolon. Not literally, but of course, What has fundamentally improved now compared to 20 years ago? Well, computers are a lot faster. So that's primarily the first thing. So, the reason, like, people focus a lot more on performance 20 years ago than they did today. And that's because there was a lot less resources available back then. And when I say resources, I mean like CPU processing power. It was important that all your software be highly efficient because you didn't have much to work with. But now in the age of Threadrippers and 32 core processors and this and that, and essentially infinite RAM, like my workstation that I have right here has 128 gigabytes of RAM because why not? Why not? I filled up all the slots with RAM. Like back then, I think my first like major computer only had like 512 megabyte, perhaps. $50 from Zach. Thanks so much. Keep on keeping on. I really appreciate that, buddy. Zach's another long-term team member who's been with me now for some time. So, and I know he's been on the receiving end of some knowledge and things like that. So, thanks a lot for that. I appreciate it. It's good to have you here. So yeah, I mean, tons of stuff has changed. It's just insane. But fast forward to today, there's tons of resources, and that's what gave way to languages like Python and Node.js and all these projects where you're trading away some speed for rate of development, and that's perhaps the most important thing. So. With your vast experience, is there any specific programming language that you'd recommend for a reliability engineering role? I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm actually not familiar with that position, to be honest, so I can't really answer that. If you want to tell me more about what a reliability engineering role does, let me know. Me personally, I don't feel like, unless you really need speed of code, I don't even see that as the most important thing anymore. I see the most important thing as rate of development. it's a lot more important to get to market with your product than it is to, get to market slower, but your code's a little bit faster. And if that were not true, then Python wouldn't be popular. Python's slow. Every language that's interpreted is slow. So we've sort of proven that out, that trading away performance for rate of development is a perfectly fine and acceptable thing to do in engineering, at least software engineering. So I don't see an issue with it. I think pick the thing you can get the job done the quickest in. That's what I would do. And that's what I do. PC0 sup EM are C#, JS, PHP, good choice of programming languages. So yeah, I mean, PHP is very popular, but that's largely due to WordPress, and it's like PHP is a popular language. I don't think a ton of people are picking it these days, but I mean, I was a PHP developer for 14 years, so I've wrote some really amazing stuff with PHP. So the idea that it can't work or can't do anything is, incorrect. PHP on 4chan, that's good. The idea that PHP is somehow like a subpar language that can't do things other languages can is simply incorrect. The language is fine. C# is a great option. C# I actually see as the Microsoft improvement over Java. I would actually, as much as I don't like Microsoft, I would actually pick C# before I pick Java. Can't stand Java. So I think C# is an improvement upon that. It's a better language, in my opinion. And then JS, of course, is the king of all that. That's the one I would recommend. JS is ubiquitous. It has use cases everywhere, anywhere from desktop applications to mobile apps, websites, embedded applications, back-end, front-end, you name it. JS is everywhere. It's never going away. It's gonna be the face of the web for a long time to come. So you've been developing since you were like 10. Yes, I started coding when I was 9, but obviously I wasn't doing anything serious, but I wrote my very first line of code about 26 years ago, more or less. And from that point, ever since I was a kid, all the way through my adult life, this is really all I've ever done. So I don't, would I say I have 26 years experience? No, because obviously I wasn't doing anything major as a kid, but I did kind of, bootstrap myself up. My parents weren't tech people, so I was kind of left to my own devices to learn how to code and this and that. And I did so. I learned how to code when I was 9. I was out there figuring it out with books, and that's really it. So what makes you choose Atom over other text editors? Here again, I choose it because I think it's easier. But I'm not gonna go as far as to say it is easier. I'm just gonna say that it's easier for me. I can be more productive with Atom, so that's what I use. But I also used Atom before VS Code existed. It's entirely possible that I would be just as happy with VS Code, but Atom came out, I think, like 2013 maybe, possibly even earlier. And I switched over shortly after that. So I've been on kind of the Atom train for, quite a long time now. It's not something new that I've used. I've used it pretty much since version 0.0.1. Neil said, EM, you motivated me to learn React Native. Thanks. Just wanted to let you know. Thanks, mate. Also, you'd use Expo or React Native CLI. So here's my opinion on that. I've looked into the whole, pure React Native versus Expo workflow, this and that. And the project I'm currently working on, here's my understanding. Here again, I'm still a learner. I'm still a learner at React Native. So my understanding is if you use Expo, you either cannot or it's very difficult to use native modules. And I'm guessing that's because of the Expo managed build process. So for my particular use case and for the project I'm working on, which is really just the mobile version of a web front end, I have no use for native modules. I don't think I'm going to be held back from that. So I think I can stick to the Expo workflow for the entirety of that project. So, but I guess we'll see. Okay, I want to make some progress on our project here, but keep the questions coming and I will keep answering those. I'm getting way more questions than I thought. I probably didn't even need to do this project. I could have probably just done a stream, which was just talking. But oh well, no big deal. Okay, making progress. We actually, believe it or not, our code's like half done probably. I know the code I sent to the other client, it ended up being like 50 lines. I thought it was gonna be a lot longer, but it wasn't. So all we're really doing here is we're trying to extract more information. So we can do this kind of quick. Because they made this so easy. They're just, these are basically like unique identifiers to information, so we can just look at these directly. Okay, street address, address locality. Just copy this. Address locality. I'll call this city. Actually, I wanna redo this a little bit. So remember we're making a CSV, so rather than creating all these different elements, what I want to do is I want to kind of create a list of these elements, and then I can just loop through them and print them with a comma in between, and then that'll be our information. So we'll just call this row, and then rather than actually assigning these, I'll just do row.append. Just do it that way. So then here I can just print row. And I guess while I'm at it, I'll just do, okay, well I actually need something else. So I need a row, which is a list of the elements in the current row, but I also need something like table. Then I can append the row to table. And here I can do for row and table, print, do something like join. And that should actually give us our data. So I think from going forward, we could just do it that way. Let's make sure that works. Okay, it produces the same thing, but okay, you can see here. So it's 509 West Commonwealth, comma Fullerton. So suppose if we wanted an actual, header, we could do address city. Let me actually clear this. So address city, and you can see that that's there. So yeah, we're just slowly scraping out data here. So what else do we need? Address region. Okay, well this presents a problem. So we got two address regions. We have an address region that is the state. We have an address region that is the zip code. I suppose I can just take the zip code from the zip code. Well, actually 92832 is not 90210. So I can't just copy that. So I'll have to extract these separately. So because there's two of these, I'm gonna end up having to do find all. So what I'll do is row.append element.find all span item prop address region. So then rather than just taking the text of this element, I need to 0.text. And then of course I'll also need 1. So this should give me the state and zip code. Good, it works. Look at that. So now I got the address with the state and zip code. Nice. So what else do we need? We need a latitude and a longitude. Okay, easy enough. So this is a little different. This has a content attribute as opposed to having a tag. So I'll just copy maybe this here. Okay, so we got span item prop. Okay, item prop's the same. Text, latitude, and longitude. Okay, run our code. Didn't work. None type object has no attribute text. All right, so element.find. All right, so what am I doing wrong here? Oh, two things. Okay, so this is a meta tag. So this is not a span tag. So I need to swap span out for meta, and then I guess text doesn't apply either. So I need content. So for beautiful soup, the way we do that is we subscript content. Nice, making progress. Let's have a look here. Oh, that worked out nice. All right, so we got address, city, state, zip, lat long. So address, city, state, zip, lat long. Okay, so I can tell I'm going to be finishing this in like 2 minutes if I don't stop. So let me look at some questions here as well. What do we got? Programmer Tux, which is better, Rust or C? So that's actually a great question. So I'm both a C and a Rust developer. I'm more so a C developer, only because Rust, I've only kind of recently gotten involved in Rust, and I've done a couple projects in it. So plus I've done a bunch of videos on it. So in terms of which is better, I guess it comes down to like, you know, what makes something better. So if we're talking about safety, then certainly Rust is going to be better. And that's because Rust eliminates all of the common errors that you would get with C, which is to say that you can't segfault with Rust unless you use an unsafe block. So, but is it better, you know, in that, is it smaller? Well, no. You know, Rust is kind of big, it's slow to compile. So C is certainly better in that case. C is also a lot simpler because C doesn't try to implement everything that Rust does. So I don't know. I like them both. I think this comes back to the whole like choose the right tool for the job. I could certainly, it's not like Rust will ever replace C. C always has a special place in development, and we'll continue to see software written in C for the foreseeable future, just like we have for the last, you know, 50 years or longer. Yeah, you know, is Java better? Maybe. You know, it all comes down to like what you know, what's important to you in a language. What was the first language you learned as a kid and why? Okay, the answer to that is going to be Visual Basic 3. And that was because at the time, remember this would have been 1994. So there wasn't a ton of web presence then. Everybody had dial-up. The web was just getting going. You know, there wasn't a ton of software. However, there was a ton of desktop software. And back then, there was Visual Basic, which is what you use to write desktop software. So this would have been Visual Basic 3 on Windows 3.1. And that was well, actually, I guess you could say QBasic would have been the first. QBasic was something I experimented with even before Visual Basic. But here again, this is what was available. Remember, I'm teaching myself all of this. You know, so nobody told me, you know, hey Brian, use QBasic. You know, I just looked around and just figured it out. So so the why is just because that's just what I landed on. I was 9, you know, just kind of feeling my way around. I would say the first major language I used would be PHP. You know, I used PHP starting in 1999, and I used that up until like 2014. So, and I chose that because, you know, in 1999, PHP had been out for a while. I was interested in web pages. Obviously, you could have used Java, but that was harder. You know, Python existed, but not for web. People weren't really building projects in web. Back in the mid to late 90s, people were making websites in either Perl with CGI or they're using PHP. Those are really the two things that are being used. Everything beyond that, you know, a lot of these new tools started coming into the mix later on, but at the time, that's what it was. AOL. Yeah, that's what we had, and that's what I used. You know, it was interesting. I remember discovering a web browser. You know, this whole like, I was conditioned to believe that the browser within AOL was the web browser, but that of course wasn't the case. You know, you could use AOL as your connection, and then you could use like Internet Explorer 4 or Mosaic. If anybody remembers that browser, you can use Mosaic at the time to open up whatever, and this included Netscape as well. Do you own your own company? Not I do, like I have my own corporation, but it's not like it's not a software firm or anything. It's really just me and contractors, doing work. So yes and no, kind of a self-employed sort of thing. CompuServe 2000 was my first internet. Yeah, this is all like relics of the past. This is all stuff that people, born in the 2000s or getting involved in technology in the tens are never gonna really experience. You're never gonna experience trying to download something on AOL when your mother picks up the phone and here's all the internet bits going across the line and breaks your connection. So lots of interesting stuff. We think about the future of JavaScript. With TypeScript is becoming more strictly typed, do you think other core features of JavaScript will be loosened in the future, asynchronous? I think JavaScript is actually in a really good place right now because, keep in mind that prior to Node.js, the JavaScript that we all know and loved was essentially not updated for 12 years. The version of JavaScript that was in every browser was this really old, bad JavaScript that they had problems between browsers and strange functionality and weird quirks, but I gotta tell you, like the reference implementation of the latest version of JavaScript, which would be like Node.js 15, is quite modern. It really is. And the reason I'm not a huge TypeScript fan is I've recognized the fact that modern JavaScript implements a lot of what TypeScript implements. So there was a point where TypeScript actually offered a ton of additional features that JavaScript didn't really have, but that's kind of been reduced to just it doesn't have types. So TypeScript really is just JavaScript with types at this point. It doesn't do a whole lot beyond that. The reason, another reason I'm not super big into it is that typically if I'm going to take the time to do static types, then I might as well just use a language that is static types that can be compiled. Like TypeScript is unique in that you have to use static types, but you don't get any performance benefits at the end. Like static types in TypeScript is really just about writing better code. It's not about writing faster code. Whereas, writing Java, for instance, the reason Java has types and the reason C has types and C++ has types is because in the end, you get to run things at native speed. That's because you've determined the types up front. TypeScript is not like this. You can't do that. So, not a big fan. Let's see. Easy on the chat. No, don't be rude in the chat. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Java is more, well, hard to say. So, Java and C++ can't really be compared. The C++ way of doing things is you write your C++, you use a compiler to compile it to a native binary, then you run that native binary. So Java, on the other hand, is use Java-C to convert Java into intermediate bytecode, and then use Java to run that intermediate bytecode on a JVM. So a lot of people don't realize this, but Java is an interpreted language, but it's highly optimized bytecode that's being interpreted, so you still get the right kind of speed because you've typed it ahead of time. What's the future for Perl? It's funny, Brainplot and I were just discussing this earlier. So, Perl is this sort of thing where it's ubiquitous across Linux servers. You can find it literally everywhere, but not a lot of people use it. The latest version of Perl, I think it's worth looking at. There's nothing wrong with it. People still do use it. Perl's going to be around for quite some time. It's very common in build systems. It has strong roots in Linux. So I think the future of Perl, it's not dim, but it's also not bright either. So I don't know. Yeah, well, I mean, Java is not, Java is interpreted, but not by an interpreter per se. So, it's not interpreted in the same way like Python is interpreted, but it is interpreted in that, like, you don't convert Java code to a native binary. You convert it to JVM compatible bytecode, which then runs on a JVM. And that's how Java ultimately achieves the whole, like, write once, run anywhere, kind of feature, is because they made the JVM run on all systems, but they made Java just convert to intermediate bytecode. And intermediate bytecode can run, on any system. Have you programmed in LabVIEW? No, I have not. Can you give me a small elaboration on what the tag span is? So span you can just think of as a generic inline HTML tag. So span typically used for just text. It doesn't have a box around it. So it's not a block level element. It's not an inline block level element, just an inline element. So yeah, just it's typically for text. That's what you can use. Okay, let's finish out this project. We got about, we're actually at 1 hour. The streams are typically 1 hour. We're gonna go about 10 more minutes. So let me finish up this project, answer a few more questions, and then I will say my goodbyes and some other stuff, and then that'll be that. So we're basically done here. The only thing that we need to get now is probably the start and end date. So here again, this is simple. Start and end date looks a lot like lat long. So I can just copy these down. Also, by the way, I'm probably going to just take this version and I'm going to give it to the same guy that I did the first project with. I'll just give this to him for free. So I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with that. So this may actually be the end. Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. So that's good. And what's cool about this now is I can just write this out. I can just write this out to a CSV. So like listings.csv. So then what I can do is I can go into there and I can open that in like an Excel spreadsheet. So let me, not Excel, but I'm gonna open it in Gnumeric. And I'll show you that real quick. Open with Gnumeric. So here's Gnumeric, and you can see that it does indeed work. So this is our CSV file after importing it in from that thing. So you can see how quickly we went from website to CSV file of information. So this is kind of our final thing, and yeah, our project's done at this point. And it only took oh my, this screen is huge. Gnumeric is the size of 8 monitors right now. I know you can't see that, but oh my goodness. Get off my screen. Oh, goodbye. Okay. Salty Doctor. Sir, I'm running Red Hat. Can you suggest what course I can do to build a career? So I know Red Hat, they do, also thank you for the donation, I appreciate that. Red Hat does have certifications, so that's definitely something to look at. And of course, Red Hat is a very huge entity, in Linux. So if you have the appropriate Red Hat certifications, then they should serve you quite well. So that would probably be what I would look at. In terms of a course, it's really just you're looking for a Linux course. That's what you're looking for. So there's tons of links, stuff online, on YouTube. There's also lots of text documentation for Linux and whatnot. So there's lots of resources. So yeah, either Red Hat certifications or just learn Linux fundamentals. That'd be my recommendation. Okay, a few more questions and then we're gonna wrap up here. So if I didn't answer your question and you want me to, now's the time to ask. What do you think about Node app as a Linux service? So I think, hey, there he is. Thanks for the stream. Cool idea for online stock tracking, stream on DevOps. Perhaps. I've actually never looked at DevOps. I mean, I've looked at DevOps, of course. I know a good deal about it, but I don't think I've ever done a stream on DevOps. So perhaps that is in the future, yeah. Yeah, for stock trading. So for stock trading, typically you can just subscribe to their WebSocket feed and extract it that way. So stock trading, I feel, would be actually easier. Oh, I should mention that the scraper I built, The reason I even have to go through all this work is because I'm taking HTML and I'm converting it to a CSV is more or less what I'm doing. But if you're on a site that is using asynchronous services or doing things over HTTP or WebSockets, then you could probably do this a lot easier. But this is the way you got to do it when you're using old sites that don't have that kind of stuff. You said Python and Java interpreters are different. What's the exact difference? So the exact difference is that the Python interpreter looks at your code and it interprets it, and that's it. So with Java converts to intermediate bytecode. The JVM then interprets that bytecode. So but it's already optimized, so it runs really fast. That's kind of the difference between that. Ever set up a SaaS business? Actually, I would say most of my projects are SaaS in nature. That's sort of the stuff I tend to find myself, into. Any success stories I can rip off? I mean, I've had decent success over the years on various stuff I've built. Nothing like major. I'm not Elon Musk or anything. I wish I were, but I'm not. So, I have a limited amount of good projects there. Yeah, I think you can expect a DevOps stream. There's no reason for us not to do it. I mean, DevOps, it's related enough to development, and it's related enough to. I kind of think that like developers in 2021, I feel like they should need to know that kind of stuff. It's not enough to just like know Node.js or know Python. It's not enough to do that. You got to be able to. You got to be able to take all the stuff you built and deploy it. And all the pieces in between, CI, testing, and whatnot. So I think it's worth looking at. I think we'll probably do that. What's up, PM? Sort of off topic, but what's your cheapest monitor? I actually, all my monitors are cheap. So I have what is it? 272HUL. Those are my monitors. They're Acers. I think I paid like 190 bucks a piece. They're 2K monitors. And that was 190 bucks like 5 years ago. So yeah, I mean, monitors are super cheap now. Yeah, DevOps. Well, there's a lot to DevOps. DevOps is kind of like, DevOps is very broad, so there's lots of things on it. And the thing about DevOps as well is the technology for like streamlining deployments and getting code live is evolving at the same pace as the stuff that took to write that software. So, obviously, we got Kubernetes, we got Docker, we got tons of different cloud tools. I mean, Amazon and Google alone have hundreds of services. And we're almost at the point where each of those services is like a new emerging technology, because they're huge and they're able to push these things out there. So. Do you still build your PCs? Yes, absolutely. Not as often, because technology is just so strong these days that I don't feel the need to really like build new computers all the time. It used to be that I was building a new thing like every couple of years, but now I think the one I have here, I think I built it in like 2016, so it's definitely due for an upgrade, but it still works. So, I haven't bothered. Like I don't have like an obsession or anything where I feel like I need to have the best stuff. I don't need to have the latest and greatest CPU or. I still run like a 1070, video card. I don't feel like I need anything better. So I use what I want. It also takes the effort to actually get it working, and I've tended to not do that. So yeah, CI/CD for real life. So yeah, CI/CD is one of these things where like oftentimes people they don't know how to do it properly, or more importantly, they don't know when to do it. Answering the question as to when you should use CI/CD is perhaps a topic all in itself. Yeah, Chase going mental. He is. I think he sees like some birds outside. Mr. Awesome, how are you doing? I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, he's being kind of a pain. It's a really nice day out. I'll probably be letting him out after the stream. I mean, yeah, Python, right? There is indeed Python bytecode, but it's not a separate step. you know, like C Python, the reference implementation for Python is there. There is bytecode, but not in the same way that there's Java. Like when you do Java C on a Java file, you're actually making JVM compatible bytecode that you can then run on a JVM. But that's not the only thing that can run on a JVM. You know, like Kotlin also produces JVM compatible bytecode. Scala produces JVM compatible bytecode. So there's actually, and for instance, Jython, which is a implementation of Python that produces JVM compatible bytecode. So I didn't mean to say that Python has no bytecode. It has to, because in the end it is, you know, a CPU doesn't understand Python, for instance. So you can't just take Python and run it on a CPU. At some point you gotta convert high level code into low level code. So yeah, that was probably a little deceiving. I didn't mean that there's literally no bytecode. I just meant that it's generated and executed at the time that the program's running. That's all I meant. It's not just Jython, it's also IronPython. IronPython is an implementation of Python that runs on the .NET infrastructure. And then there's also PyPython, which I think is a pure interpreted version. I think it's like Python written in Python or something like that. But the one we all know and love is CPython. How do you deal with React Native dependency hell? So I've actually haven't experienced that. I have very few dependencies and it all seems to work pretty well. I honestly, my React Native project looks a lot like my React projects on the web. The only difference is, you know, obviously there's no DOM. And then the thing that's a little weird is I'm like, for instance, on Android, I'm used to calling open dialog on Android to pop up a little dialog, but there is no real like React Native method open dialog. You're updating a parent state that says this dialog is open, and then once you set that state, the dialog opens, and that's that. To close the dialog, you're just saying the state that the dialog should be closed. So it's less like you're really just updating a state. You're not taking any particular actions. PyPy is JITted Python. Okay. Yeah, I should mention that I'm actually not an expert in Python. A lot of people think I do because I've done a lot of Python projects, but I'm much more a Node.js developer. I know Node.js and JavaScript a lot more intimately than I do Python. No? Do I feel everything React Native is kind of hacky? No, not at all. I think I'm actually amazed by how smooth it is. I'm amazed at how well it is because, you know, I think where React Native doesn't get enough credit. This was something that I looked into when I looked into Flutter as well recently. This was after I posted my video. It was clear to me that, you know, people are showing me these benchmarks like, you know, React Native is super slow and Flutter is super fast, and I looked it up and they are indeed correct. React Native is relative to Flutter quite slow, and Flutter is quite fast. And I found out it's because Flutter is like redrawing the whole canvas on its own, whereas React Native is mapping to native controls and showing those. And once I saw that, I realized, all right, well, that's clearly why this is so much faster. You know, but here again, I'm back to the whole that I'm amazed at how well it works. It doesn't feel hacky though. I mean, unless you think React projects on the web are hacky, in which case, you know, millions of people would disagree. But I don't know. Yeah, so React Native was terrible a year ago. Metro service kept dying. So that's fair enough. I know that I checked out React Native probably about a year or two ago, and I did not have a good experience at that time. It did not work properly. I don't know if it was just my environment or it's just flaws in the program, but I tried it out and I ditched it about as quick as I tried it. Have you ever tried out Vim? Absolutely. I know how to use Vim. I know how to use Nano. I know how to use a bunch of editors, but I don't use Vim for like major development. But if I'm if I'm on a cloud server and I'm updating files and I'm doing some work, you know, purely in the terminal, then yeah, I'll use Vim. I don't have a problem with that. Let's see. So I think, all right, last call for questions. I think we're pretty much at the end here. If not, I'll do my outro, and that'll be it. Hi from Mexico. Happy programming. Thank you. Thank you for visiting. Please tell about CI/CD. I will. Thoughts on the Django? Never used it. How awesome is Raspberry Pi? Very awesome. I've done a couple videos on it. I think a Raspberry Pi is one of the greatest things ever. In fact, I got my niece one of those Pi 400s, the one that's built into the keyboard, and she really loves it. She's only like 6 or 7, and she's I think she's 7 now. She's using Linux, doesn't even realize it. So pretty cool. You know, and she thinks it's cool looking because it's, you know, it's like red and white and it's got a little, you know, berry on it. How do you remember all your programming languages? I assume you code in them all equally. Not really. There's probably like 5 or 6 languages that I feel like I know fluently that I can just sit down and knock out without really reading any documentation. That's just because I do use those all a bunch, but it's actually, in my mind, it's not super important that you have like languages memorized, because that's why documentation exists. You know, I'm not at all shameful in the fact that I go use documentation. You know, I'm on Stack Overflow the same as everybody else. The only difference between me and everybody else perhaps is that I'm not just copy and pasting things from Stack Overflow. I'm going and I'm getting kind of like an idea on what I need to be building. Because if you just copy and paste stuff, it's pointless. You copy and paste stuff, you don't know how it works, and that's going to cause problems. So how do I remember all of them? I don't. You know, I know the core stuff, and that's the rest I just look at documentation for. Let's see. Yeah, so the next live stream will be probably in roughly a month. Yeah, NPM. Yeah, NPM packages. I don't know. That's kind of a double-edged sword. You know, does NPM need screening? I'm not sure. You know, it's a double-edged sword there. You know, it's if you did screen packages in NPM, you know, who is now the arbiter of good NPM packages? You know, that's a lot of reason why people hate Apple is, you know, Apple has a physical person reviewing your iOS app before it goes in to the App Store, and they're the sole arbiter of whether or not your app is good enough to go into the App Store. You know, so I don't think that's appropriate. So it's sort of a double-edged thing. I don't know. As much as I hate seeing these meme packages and this ridiculousness in NPM, I also kind of don't want some random dude, you know, being the arbiter of what should and shouldn't be in NPM. So I don't know. Okay, I think we're pretty much to the end here. Oh, okay, I'm gonna answer this last question for Andrew. I'm currently doing an apprenticeship for a company where there are only 2 developers, but they have hundreds of clients. There's a lot of pressure. What should I do? You should do the best you can, because that's all you can do is the best you can. And they recognize that. I mean, if you're at a company that says like 2 people should serve 100 clients, you know, it just doesn't work. And you tell them that, like, look, this is not enough. If you want all this work to get done, you got to get more people. But I would say you just need to do your best. That's it. Do your best. That's the best you can do. Okay, as far as we're at the end of the stream at this point, as I said, we will do another stream, I think, in about a month. I've been reminded on why I did these. I really enjoyed it. I can see that a lot of people did enjoy it. And we had a concurrent viewer limit of 247 people. So pretty good. Pretty good. The all-time high for a stream, I think, was 570. So, but honestly, if I get more than like 80, I'm happy. So a lot of new names in the chat. So thank you so much to all those people for coming out to check out the stream. If you want to watch old streams, there's a ton of them out there. I think I've done 44 streams now. So, and of course, thanks a lot to everybody who donated a little bit to support the stream. I appreciate that. I promise I will reinvest that money into new Engineer Man type stuff. So don't you worry about that. And if it was your first stream, thank you very much for coming. We'll continue doing these in the future. And then finally, if you would like to get involved in any of like EM development, or if you want to get involved in coding contests or anything like that, definitely come to check out the Engineer Man Discord. Somebody will post a link to that in the chat in a moment. David Gaines, thank you for the $10. I appreciate that so much. So when's the next stream? Don't worry. So if you missed this stream, don't worry. As soon as the stream concludes, it's going to get uploaded to YouTube and you can watch it from the beginning along with all the chat. So don't worry, you didn't miss it. Next stream will be in about 1 month, I would say, or so. There's tons of stuff going on in Discord, a lot of like-minded people. There's contests, there's challenges. You can get roles for doing challenges. You can get points and awards, and there's just a ton going on. So if you want to kind of go further with Engineer Man type stuff, then that is the place to be. Hi, I've watched your videos. Very good, and thanks. You're welcome. Thanks a lot. Been here since the beginning of the live stream. Nice. Yep. I saw you there. PogChamp. Okay. So we're going to wrap up now. Again, thanks a lot to everybody for coming. We will catch up in the coming days. And until then, stay safe, be safe, keep working on your projects, and I will see everybody soon. Take care.